Hey YouTube, so this is what's to come. We are at Rausch Creek, and we will talk about this obstacle in detail, I guess, and the trail that we're on, and you're going to see a bunch of trail footage at Rausch Creek. So first off, like, where are we at? Like, that's the greatest question. We are at the Rausch Creek Off-Road Park in Pennsylvania. We are on the northeast property, and right now, like, there's a camera little icon up there at the top of the northeast property. We're up in that direction, sort of kind of going around toward the right hand side of the screen, and then we're going to jump on trail 37. So it's like X4 to 37. That's the general area that we're in, and you can see the trail signs in the video if you want to know exactly when we turned onto which trail and where we turned where. But anyway, that was like the little overview of it. And so this is a green guided ride that we're on, and this is the opening COVID-19 weekend. So this is early May. By the time you see the video, it might have been about a month ago almost. Yeah, it takes a while to get these videos chopped up and everything. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Subscribers really help the channel out. We are trying to become an actual official YouTube channel, and YouTube doesn't really acknowledge you exist until you have at least 4,000 watch hours, and we have almost 5,000 and 1,000 subs. So we're just trying to get our sub count up a little bit, and then we'll when I say official, I mean like YouTube will actually email you back if you email them, or they'll respond to tickets, or they'll do anything for you basically, because right now we're like nobody to them. So anyway, let's get to the video and less about YouTube. So this is the first obstacle where we are turning off like the main road, and we are turning onto trail 37. And so the first obstacle and this is one of the first times we're out with the Gladiator, other than going to like Flagpole and Dictum, like in Virginia at Rausch. And I was kind of worried about high centering there, and I didn't. And a lot of these kind of steep inclines, I was kind of just worried about high centering, honestly, because the breakover angle, as we discovered, is pretty awful on the Jeep Gladiator in comparison to our last Jeep that we had. So anyway, anytime you see brake lights like that, it means that there's some obstacle ahead of us, and it means that everybody is slowing down. There is this kind of like rubber band effect that's going on. We're at the back of the group, which means that basically we have to wait for everybody ahead of us to do an obstacle. But then after they get done with the obstacle, usually people rush when it's easy. So there ends up being these kind of like gaps like in the group, and the gaps are the most obvious at the back of the group, which means that the back of the group is always like trying to speed up to catch up to everybody, and they're always having to stop and wait the longest, where the people in the front typically can just go on constant speed, and they don't understand why the people in back can't keep up, because they don't understand that the people in back had to wait for them to do the obstacle. And every small delay cascades down, so if you have like 20 Jeeps and everybody waits 5 seconds, 20 times 5 is a lot of time to have to sit and wait, obviously, where the people in the front only had to wait like the 5 seconds. So anyway, we are on trail 37, and we are trying to get up there to be able to do the obstacle, and we will be there very shortly. So then you can actually see the obstacle, but I'm not really wanting to cut this out. I did speed it up just so you could see any other obstacles or whatever minor obstacles. So this trail that we're on, I believe, is a blue trail, even though we are on a green guided ride. We broke the group up into sections, and one of the groups that we had that went out was going to do the easy blues or hard greens, and then the other group was going to be just doing all the super easy stuff. And when I say blues, like I mean like the train like that we're on right now, which, like I've explained before, every park kind of grades things a little bit differently. In my mind, the train that we're on, if I had to give it a rating from like 1 to 10 in difficulty, I would say it would be somewhere around maybe like a 3. Okay, like there are some little rocks here or whatever, but this is somewhere around maybe a 3, which is green. The green range is 1 to 3, the blue range is 4, 5, 6. If it was a blue, I would give it a 4. So it's like 3 or 4. It's very easy stuff. In contrast, if you compare this to the footage that we do like at AOAA, you'll see that the blues there are typically more like around like 6 ish, five-ish sort of. Because like I said, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and typically they're just not quite the same. So don't think that like if you're doing this, you're if you go to AOA and jump on blues, you're gonna be happy, because unless you want it to be more painful. So this right here is the main obstacle, and you can see our spotters up there trying to give us some stuff, and it doesn't really look like much. Honestly, it's basically a big hole on the left hand side, and I don't think he's giving me that much direction. He's like, hey, there's a rock there, and then I think like right here is where I actually stop, and he actually starts to give me a little bit of guidance. And so what's going on here is basically there's some trees that you can't see there in the back, and so I am required to basically make this like left turn and then make a right turn, and there's a bunch of rocks that are basically in odd positions that make it a little bit more interesting, because you're trying to get kind of like lined up to go over the rocks, but you're also trying to get lined up to go between the trees. And so there's a handful of different concepts here that we can talk about to see, and you're going to see this with the other gladiator, because I'm going to park up here and jump out, and then we'll get some footage with the other camera. But there's a handful of very minor, subtle little concepts here to get through that. And you can see even here, I'm going to just park like in the middle of some rocks. So for difficulty, for how big these obstacles are, and you can see how big they are basically lined up with my rock rails, and I'm in a gladiator with like 34s. So anyway, so here we go. This is the other gladiator that's going through this. And apparently the gladiators are the ones that are being spotted through this obstacle. The wranglers, who have a better breakover angle, aren't needing any spotting. So you can see there's that tree up there on his driver's side. And in my mind, I think he's on the wrong side of the trail. I think that if he was farther over to the passenger, it would make all this a lot easier. So basically the concept is you have to steer from the rear, which means that like the rear is the hardest part to move. And so since he's so close to that tree, essentially that's forcing him to go straight, and he can't really turn until that tree gets past the rear tires. Because if he turns before that, he'll like hit the tree potentially, right? So that's where like what side of the trail you're on makes a big difference. Now what Keith is trying to do here is he's trying to get it so he's going to straddle the hole. Like there's a big hole there, kind of like on that one side of the rock. So he's getting him to try to turn, and he's doing these like small little 3-point turns to get him around the tree, but also to try to position him so he can do this. So what you're going to see is the passenger tire is going to go up on that rock, and like I tell people, like the basic principle is you put your tires on the biggest rocks you can find, just like that. And so I pause it for a second so you can see what he's doing. And so once again, by putting the tires on the big rocks, like, and then the big hole in the middle, that usually works out. But the big mistake that the driver here makes is he immediately turned right, and he should be turning left. And the question was, well, why? But once again, you have to steer from the rear, and what that means is basically you need the rear tires to track where the front tires went. So if you immediately get the front tires like over an obstacle, and then you immediately make a turn like left or right, the rear tires will not be where the front tires were. So if you know that there's a perfect spot like to get over an obstacle, it means that essentially you go over it with the front tires, and then you have to leave the tires straight for like whatever the rough distance is between the front and the rear tire. And obviously, since the Gladiator has such a huge wheelbase, you're talking about like you have to kind of go straight for like at least 4 or 5 feet before you can safely make a turn. Otherwise, what you'll find is like the rear tires will be way off where they need to be. And you saw there, like the rear tires basically ended up going over the same spot that the front tires went over. And the reason why is because Keith had them stay to the left instead of immediately making that right-hand turn. So that's like a little lesson learned for everybody, I guess, on steering the rear. So here's a Wrangler. This is a unlimited. We had an unlimited, but you can see like he didn't even hit that big rock, and he just sort of went around it. And the question was, well, how did he do that? Well, the reason why he was able to do that is because he was on he was more passenger on the trail, so he wasn't as close to the tree. So he was able to make the turn sharper without having to worry about that tree getting in the way. So that just had to do with like seeing the obstacle ahead of time and being in the right position on the trail. That's why like he just like went right over it. And the same probably could have happened for gladiators maybe. But you saw like even I like didn't just like go over. So here you can see there's a good example of the obstacles on this trail. That obstacle there is obviously half the size of the tire. I was on the smaller part of the obstacle, and it was like right about my rock rail. So I mean there are pretty sizable obstacles on this trail that we're on. It's a blue trail, and if you compare this to like say like Flagpole or whatever in Virginia, this would be similar to the Union Spring side of Flagpole, or if you've done Dictum or Second Mountain, this is probably comparable to the obstacles on Second Mountain. I don't remember the obstacles being this big on Dictum, honestly. I thought Dictum was a little bit easier than Second Mountain, but they would probably be similar to Dictum also. They probably all are in the same category range of around like say a 3 out of 10 in difficulty. So that was a main blue footage, or difficult footage if you want to consider blues difficult at Rausch, that we have. But I'm going to just kind of try to get through some other footage until we get to the next kind of interesting part. So I'm going to leave the video running for a while. The rest of this is basically some green footage. Hey, so here's a map again to give you an idea of what's going on. So we were on like the X4 trail. You saw us turn on to 37. 37 was the footage that you saw with the gladiators going over little obstacles. Now we're on the N2 trail, and we will be going through the N3 trail. So we're basically just going through the scenic green areas of the northeast property along the map edge there, if you were curious. And this will be easier content for the most part, but it is very scenic. So there are obstacles still, even though this is a little bit easier trail area. And since these are greens, this will be between 1 and 3 in difficulty on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's rated properly. And I think that this area is actually probably rated properly. So once again, we are at the Rausch Creek Off-Road Park, so in Pennsylvania, and there are 3 parks basically in this area if you've never been up here. There's the Rausch Creek, which is the smallest of the 3, but it is humongous. So usually the people don't like hearing the word small along with the word Rausch Creek. And then the next one next to it is Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area, which I think is around twice as big as Rausch Creek. And then the one next to that is the famous Reading Outdoors, FRO, which is a bunch of different tracts of land. And cumulatively, if you add FRO up together, I think FRO is like twice as big as AOA. The largest, but probably the one that is used the least, mainly because it's not really like a park per se. It's more like a bunch of tracts of land in the wilderness you can get access to. And when I'm here, like recently when I went to AOA the weekend after this weekend, AOA was like crazy. Like their parking was super busy. As busy as Rausch Creek normally looks. Normally, the way that it looks when you go out to these parks, normally Rausch seems very busy, and they're the smallest, and then AOA seems moderately busy, but they're not like slammed, and it's like much bigger, so it feels much more empty when you're out on the trails. And then FRO, sometimes you don't even see anybody else, like other than your group, because it's so segmented and stuff. You might be the only set of people on that tract of land. So there are trails all over the place, but this is a green guided ride that we're on, so it is intended to be mostly green trails, and then if we do a blue trail, it'll be one of the easier ones. And they have this kind of pace that they follow with off-road-consulting that you kind of see, and it's like basically every other trail ends up being a difficult trail or difficult for that level. They don't want to just like amp people up all day, so maybe they'll like start like with say like a blue trail or like a light blue trail. Like if this is a green guided ride, I'll start with something a little more difficult. Let's just say it'll be in the same color range, and then you'll get all stressed and like whatever maybe about it, and then they intentionally try to like do like an easy one for you to kind of like have a little breather for like 10 minutes or whatever, 5 minutes, and then they'll like maybe do another one. It seems pretty rare to see them try to just like break stuff like nonstop, or you know, keep you on you know, playing stuff, or keep you.
Hey YouTube, we are at our 11 o'clock pit stop. This is just a little stop that we're doing, and then we're gonna head out to our lunch area, I guess, in half an hour or whatever. You can see the lineup of Jeeps that we have behind us. There's about 20-ish Jeeps with us. I think there's a total of 4 Gladiators, and they broke us up into 2 groups. There's like a green group that's like easy, and then like there is a hard green, like light blue or whatever, like group, which is also easy, but it's like less easy. A little more moderate. And so it's interesting because we're doing trails with the Gladiators that apparently they haven't taken Gladiators on before, that have been just JKUs, and the obstacles are a little bit different than what they were kind of expecting. But there's like I think the orange Jeep is the lead Jeep. I don't see any Jeeps in front of it. And you can see all the other Jeeps like going way back there. Hopefully you're enjoying the footage that we're going to share with you guys, and we will see you guys around. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.
Hey, I want to show you a wide variety of the vehicles that are out here. So that looks like a JKU Wrangler 4-door. That looks like a LJ maybe. That one was on maybe 37s, the other one was on 35s. These look like 35s or 34s. It's another JK 4-door. There's a Rubicon, maybe with a lift, can't really tell. There's another Rubicon 4-door JKU. There's 2 Gladiator Rubicons that are side by side, and you can see we both have, it looks like the stock tires, stock heights. You can see behind me there is a TJ on the left and a 2-door JK, and then so back to the 3 parks or whatever. So the Rausch Creek Park is known for these very wide trails, like the trail that we're on now. Even on smaller trails, it's just known to be more beat in, so to speak, where people have traveled for more, and you can easily get large vehicles out here. And when I say large vehicles, I mean like Raptors. And I think somebody asked me on one of them if they could. I don't even remember. It was a Power Wagon. If you could bring a Power Wagon out here. Well, you could bring like 2 Power Wagons out here and put them side by side, and just get little, you know, pinstripes on the edges of them, like, and put them side by side. I mean, most of these trails are so wide. So yes, you can bring a Power Wagon out here. Yes, you can bring a Raptor out here. Yes, you can bring a Hummer out here. I've even seen like military vehicles out here that were somebody had purchased, you know, after the fact, after they were decommissioned or whatever out here. This place has quite a few trails that are absolutely large. That is not to say that they don't have some narrow trails, because they do have a handful of narrow trails, but most of the trails here at Rausch are very broad and open and wide. And I think we were planning on doing lunch here, but they were farming in this area, and they're putting actually fertilizer down like over these fields, and so we were just like kind of trying to get out of the area, honestly. In contrast to like the AOAA is more like motorcycle trails and ATV trails that the Jeeps barely fit on, and so in comparison, it's a lot harder to pass vehicles at the other park than it is here, just because the trails are so much narrower, and there are quite a few more restrictions on like what kind of vehicles can fit through areas. So like when we go over there to like AOA with the Gladiator, we're much more concerned with like hitting trees, and much more concerned with are we going to fit on every single trail, because we don't even know if we'll fit on all the trails yet. It'll get beaten to the point that you can, but that is just sort of like a concern of ours. And if you didn't notice, like every time you stop, like pretty much like people get out and like they'll get like a sandwich or get a drink out of their cooler, or like whatever. Like in one of the situations, like even I think it was even on this ride, or maybe it was the next ride, we stopped for a second like that, and like literally there was like maybe a 30-second pause, like while whatever was going on. I took the top down like while like we were waiting like that 30 seconds or whatever. People always, like whenever you stop like that, people always jump out and they have something that they want to do, because when you're out here on the trail, like a lot of times like you're on the trail for like an hour or 2, so if you see a pause, like even for like say 30 seconds, like you take advantage of it.
Hey YouTube, so we stopped for lunch, and This is our little stopping place. Like basically it's just a switchback, and we have like a huge traffic jam. Basically Jeeps like parked up here, and we had our little lawn chairs out and stuff, and just enjoyed our little COVID safe, everybody, you know, 6 feet apart, lunch in the woods. And we are getting ready to head back out on the trail with the Gladiator. And even though that Gladiator behind me looks like mine, and like you're gonna be like, oh look Nathan, you got a soft top, that one's not mine. That's one of our subscribers. This one's mine. So they look, but yeah, they're both Gobi Jeeps, Gladiators, pretty cool. So anyway, we will see you guys around.
So we are headed back out to the trails after our lunch or whatever, and we're basically just going to end the video, I guess, somewhere around here. And essentially most of the rest of this footage on this clip or whatever is just going to be us on these screens heading to the next interesting segment. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and if you don't think you have a YouTube account, you probably do. You can sign into YouTube with any Google account, so if you have like @gmail.com, like that's what you use to sign into YouTube. And yeah, subscriptions really help us out a whole lot. And if you like the video, thumbs up. If you don't like the video, thumbs down, like whatever. A lot of people don't understand YouTube, and they don't understand that actually a thumbs down is basically the same as a thumbs up. They're both considered engagements. It's just a matter of whether or not you get the up or the down on the UI. So please, you know, even give us that. That would be awesome. Thank you.